Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Superboy Beyond. And after rather a long time of Beyond commentaries, we are returning to Superboy. And this week we are doing the season 4 episode, I believe it. Yep, the third episode from season 4, The Kryptonite Kid, which very, very loosely inspired by the comic. There's not a lot connecting them, really. I'm sure Chris can tell us more about that because
indeed
more about it. Yeah, I'm sure we had recorded a commentary for this once before, but I guess just for whatever reason it got lost. But oh well, means we get to watch it again.
And it's a good episode, so that's always a pleasure.
Absolutely. It's one of the best episodes, one of my favorite guest stars as well. I mean, who doesn't love Jay Underwood? I mean, he was great in Uncle Bug. You know, I loved him as Bug, surname Spray.
Yeah. And he was also great in the Roger Corman Fantastic Four film as Johnny Storm.
I saw that once when I was at uni. I haven't seen it since. It's one that I need to watch again. And I know that somebody has uploaded onto YouTube. They did a AI upscale of it to clean it up a bit. So I'll probably watch that version because from the clips I saw, it looks pretty decent. So yeah, I'll probably watch it there. Maybe I'll even include a link in the description if I remember. So if you want to watch it, you can find it, but you can Google it easy enough. Anyway, if this is your first time watching one of our commentaries, this is not like a typical YouTube reaction video. It's more like the Patreon videos that some channels do where they will give you the full uncut reaction. It does mean, though, that you'll need to find your own copy of the episode to watch alongside us. You will see a very heavily filtered version of it up there in the middle. That's purely so you can keep in time with us. You know, if somebody knocks at the door, you need to run to the bathroom. Maybe you just want to go grab a cup of coffee or something. You know, it helps you keep in time, stops you having to mess around a lot, trying to get back in sync with us. So get your DVDs ready or your digital download copy if you've bought it on Amazon or YouTube or wherever you get your copies. Maybe you Jack Sparrowed it. Anyway, get ready to play in 3, 2, 1, play. So yeah, one of the better episodes from season 4, this one, in my opinion.
And it actually gives us, you know, a quote-unquote supervillain. Which the show was not too keen on doing a lot of supervillain characters.
Yeah, and I don't know why, because let's face it, you know, every time it was a Metallo episode, I'm sure I'm not alone in, like, you know, every fan of the show, if it was a Metallo episode, that was appointment viewing, because they're some of the best episodes. Even Metallo's clip show is maybe the best clip show in the show at all. Maybe Cat and Mouse comes close, but I still prefer People versus Metallo in hindsight.
Yeah. Now, of course, as we mentioned before, and the character of the Kryptonite Kid here is played by Jay Underwood, who became famous in the 80s for, you know, a series of TV movies and such as The Boy Who Could Fly, Not Quite Human with Alan Thicke. He was in the Fantastic Four with, you know, done by Roger Corman.
Which isn't a bad movie, you know. Yeah. That's actually a pretty good film. It's just they never intended to release it. Not that they told the actors. But no, Jay Underwood's great in this episode.
Yeah, and he has the distinction of being one of a select few actors who've been in both Marvel and DC projects.
Yeah. It's funny because, you know, they just had Deadpool versus Wolverine and they showed the, you know, it was part of like the universe of all the Fox characters that were abandoned after like one movie or not even a movie.
Right.
It's a shame that they didn't have a cameo for this Fantastic Four because, I mean, they brought back Chris Evans to play his Johnny Storm again. So maybe it could have been fun to have these guys come back to the role. But I don't think Jay Underwood's acting anymore. Maybe he wouldn't do it even if they offered.
Well, and I think just like this show, people, at Marvel want to forget that movie ever happened.
Yeah, which is a shame because it's not bad.
Yep.
Considering they actually released the Josh Trank one.
Yep.
Ow. Don't claw my face. Little cow.
And now, of course, we get our lab accident that creates the Kryptonite Kid.
Indeed.
And
now, how was the Kryptonite Kid created in the comics? Was he an alien or something? Did you say?
Yes, he was an alien juvenile delinquent who was in basically a work farm, and the government of his planet came to the work farm and said, we need volunteers to go into a spacecraft and test it. So who wants to go up? And he and his dog volunteered. Okay. And they passed through this radiation cloud that transformed them into the Kryptonite Kid and the Kryptonite dog.
Very Fantastic Four, really.
Yes. And not only could and his species was telepathic, so he could broadcast, nightmares into Superboy's brain, which is how the story started. But not only could he generate kryptonite energy from his body, but he could also affect other objects and cause them to become like kryptonite.
Interesting.
So there's a healthy dose of Element Lad from the Legion of Superheroes in his abilities.
Can't Firestorm also do that sort of thing? Can't he change things down to the atomic level and basically turn things into other things?
Well, he could. His ability can change the shape. All the Kryptonite Kid is doing is causing the stuff to become irradiated like kryptonite. So he's not changing it in the sense of atomic. He's just
giving the effects of kryptonite to it. That's interesting. I do think Jay Underwood's very good in the role. This is maybe his best scene, which is funny because most of the episodes built around him sort of being this outlandish, kind of wacky, egotistical character. But in this scene, he's just playing it sad, and I think he's doing a dynamite job.
And this is one of those times where the glowing radiation effect that they put on kryptonite actually works, because they're superimposing it over him, and because they've also given him a green pallor to his skin, it doesn't look like it's superimposed properly.
Yeah, I doubt they actually did any makeup on him though. So technically, it's just 2 passes. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just the one. And so Vic the Impersonator, one of my favorite side characters from the whole show. It's funny because even Lois and Clark had a joke where there was a Superman lookalike that's also played by Dean Cain.
Yeah,
but that was just for one. That was for one episode. I think it was the Al Capone episode, because they want to see if the the resurrected gangsters are actually just impersonators.
Yeah,
makes sense. And it always cracks me up seeing Superman walk in with a beeper attached to his belt. It's just a funny image.
Yeah, there is some kind of makeup done to his skin to give it a slight green texture, almost zombie makeup.
Yeah.
But when they add in the
stop fighting. Sorry, my cats are attacking each other.
Yeah, but when they add in the green overlay, it works.
The little one's attacking the big one. They don't. No, I'm gonna have to kick them out.
All right. So we have now our scene of. I'll just keep this going as Tom is handling things. The Kryptonite Kid is now escaped from the hospital. And because it's established at the beginning of the episode that he's big on heavy metal rock music, that's going to play in here with what he's doing.
Just a fun concept. Like, he looks up at the power lines and he's just like, I know what that kind of looks like. It's just
a giant bass guitar. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting that Superboy recognized that, because he's never really shown much musical knowledge or capability. I guess he briefly was singing into the microphone in that what was the season 1 episode with the serial killer?
Bringing Down the House.
Yeah. He briefly sings in that.
And when I first saw the episode, having originally read the comics with the classic Kryptonite Kid in it, I was a little taken aback that they didn't go with the comic accurate suit.
Mm.
But looking at it now as an adult, it's like, yeah, that wouldn't have worked.
No. And this suit, okay, he's just sort of dressed like a rock musician. It looks like a costume. The way that the pants have got all those patches and stuff on them, like,
yeah,
maybe that was the fashion at the time, but I mean, I don't know.
The patches all over it, they're all military patches. It's very reminiscent of Ursa from Superman 2.
True, yeah. And I do like that they're actually showing that the kryptonite poisoning is killing him too. Like, it's not just like now he's just a supervillain with an unstoppable power. Like, if Superboy doesn't find a way to stop him, like, he's gonna die too. Like, Superboy's trying to save his life. So yeah, I appreciate that little detail. Now, with all these explosions, I always try to work out whether they're like that car explosion there. I'm sure I've seen in a different episode.
Well, the window explosion, I think that was from Rebirth.
Right. Yeah, so I think they're just a bunch of reused explosions. But fair enough, it's a low budget show.
And of course, they just superimposed the green effect on them.
Yeah. Makes them just different enough that it works, If Michael Bay can get away with reusing the same shots across multiple films and just changing out some of the visual effect elements, Superboy can too.
Yeah.
Considering it's got a much, much lower budget.
And I like this actor that they have playing the general here. He's not your typical, military general, the Thunderbolt Ross, barking orders at everybody, screaming and yelling.
Bit more like the General Hammond type.
Yes. He's got a personality that comes through in every scene.
Yeah. And I do think he does a better job than the I forget the name of the character, the general that was in Super Menace.
That was General Swan.
Yeah. I thought he was fine. I thought maybe he didn't handle the technobabble quite so well. But this guy, I think, does do a great job. I wouldn't have minded, though, if they brought the original general back. Like, it might have been cool if they had a recurring character like they did with, Professor Peterson and, what's it, Inspector... What's his name? Inspector something.
Lieutenant Harris.
Lieutenant Harris, that's it, sorry. Yeah. Might have been nice if they had a recurring army general in this show. Then again, if you were to do that, I'd want it to be Sam Lane. But they can't do that.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is one of my favorite scenes. Just I think the way that they keep the camera moving, I think Gerard's performance back and forth is good. And I like that Superboy in this moment is actually quite intimidating for a moment, because he probably is quite pissed off that this guy was sort of ruining his reputation a fair bit.
My headcanon on this is because season 1 did happen in this universe, I'm thinking he's looking at it like this is another Hugo again.
Yeah.
And that's why he's got that pissed off look on his face.
And this guy would actually be more dangerous just purely because he does look so much like him, whereas the other guy looked more like a sort of skinny Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
Which might have been fine if Superman Lives had already released at that point, but didn't quite work for season 1 of Superboy. But that was, that wasn't the point. The point was that everybody was looking at the costume and not the face, really. And nobody really knew what Superboy's face looked like at that point. Except for, obviously, the cops and people that have interacted directly with him.
I like the playfulness of Underwood as Walker, the Kryptonite Kid. He's very playful, even though he's kind of psychotic at the same time.
Now, he did just threaten to kill those guys. I do like, though, that they gave him the season 4 suit at this point, because earlier on, Vic was wearing the season 3 suit and the season 2 tunic, which had obviously bleached quite a bit by that point.
Yep.
So yeah, it makes sense that, the moment he's going to be pretending to be the actual Superboy with Superboy's help, yeah, he would get the new costume. It is interesting, though, that the military actually made it for him. But I guess, he can't just fly back to Smallville and ask Marl, quickly throw together another costume for me.
Yeah,
I need it in 5 minutes.
There's much left of the original blankets.
True.
And that is a really good compositing, of the two halves right there.
I mean, okay, it's just a split screen, but I mean, for TV, that's not bad at all. I've seen much worse. I mean, let's face it, they just had the Flash movie with 2 Barry Allens, and that looked worse than this episode.
Yeah.
Because they put a terrible looking CG deepfake face on one of them in all scenes, and it just doesn't work.
Especially, CGI work, it should be a tool that is used to enhance things, not to get rid of practical effects.
Yeah. That movie costs so much money as well. I mean, my thing with it is just, if Back to the Future 2 and 3 did it better in 1989, like maybe hold off on using the new technology for a while. Like maybe stick with what works until the new technology is actually usable. It doesn't make sense to me. Maybe in terms of a production schedule, maybe shooting the thing, it was easier that way. But yeah. Love this supervillain entrance.
Yeah.
I have to wonder, do you think he stacked all those barrels himself just so he could do that?
Probably.
He's a showman. We've established that. He's definitely a showman.
I would so love to make an action figure of him.
Can't imagine it'd be that difficult to find the right sort of leather jacket and Then you could probably just paint the pants.
Yeah, just the problem comes with the head.
Yeah. You'd have to find a head that looks vaguely similar, but they used to make action figures of rock stars and stuff. Like maybe you can find like something like that. It must be like a rock star that had a similar hairstyle, maybe even with the earring, you know. If you do ever make an action figure of him, can I make a suggestion for when you do his skin?
Sure.
Get glow in the dark paint.
That
Because
was
you
the
can
thought.
get slightly green tinged glow in the dark paint. That'd look amazing. You like on your shelf, yeah.
Mm.
I like that they give Vic his own Superboy speech, and I love that it's very clearly written to Vic's voice. Like Superboy wouldn't pronounce his words quite the same way, which I guess is what gave the game away. But yeah, Vic was just such a fun character. It's a shame that this was the last season, so you couldn't bring him back. Maybe we'll find something when we eventually go back to season 5.
Yeah.
It's funny how in that shot you can see the edges of the camera lens. Like they must have zoomed out so much you can actually see the what do they call it? The light guard or whatever they called it.
Yeah.
Nice ending. Tell you what, Vic would be useful for. It's a tried and true storyline in the comics. You know, somebody discovers Superman and Clark Kent are the same person, so he needs someone to pose as Superman or Clark Kent for a scene. I don't know. I think Vic could be trusted at a certain point. Now, maybe you'd have him play Clark just purely so Superboy can still fight if need be. But
Yeah.
he would have to be let in on the secret. But I don't know. After this episode, I think he could be trusted with it.
I think so. I think so. Yeah.
I mean, let's face it. All it's going to take is for him to put on glasses, and at some point, he might, if he knows what Clark Kent looks like, he'll know. And let's face it, if Clark's time in Metropolis goes anything like Lois and Clark, he'll be on a frigging billboard at some point, which is just stupid. But we probably won't go in that direction.
Yeah.
Just because I don't see how Lois or Clark can operate as undercover reporters ever again with their faces on billboards in Metropolis. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It didn't at the time. It doesn't now.
Yeah.
I always thought it was stupid.
Yeah. What I think what we should do with Vic is make him, the season 5 equivalent of the classic character from the Silver and Bronze Age of Superman stories, Gregory Reed, who was a lookalike and played Superman in the movies.
That would be fun. Yeah, maybe they're making a Superman movie.
Yeah, and of course, Vic has gotten his life back on track, and he's actually gone, using a stage name, which is Gregory Reed. And Gregory Reed's name is actually a thinly veiled homage to George Reeves.
Cool. I like that. And maybe the movie's directed by a young up-and-comer named Andy McAllister. He said he'd be a director within a week. Maybe it took a year, but I believe in Andy. He's tenacious. He will keep going until he achieves his dream.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a great episode. One of the best episodes from season 4. As I say, I don't know really anything about the original comic with Kryptonite Kid, but this is just a really solid standalone episode that I don't even think they necessarily needed to use the name. I think it's a good name that fit the character. I wouldn't even be surprised if the name came later. It might have just been,
I mean,
something
it was
else.
written by Mike Carlin and Andy Helfer, so those two being DC writers and fans of the Silver Age, and knowing that the constraints they had with what characters they could use, Kryptonite Kid appeared in a Superboy comic, the Superboy comic, first. So, right there.
Yeah, it works. And let's face it, for television, they often completely change up a character's origin or even their personality at times. I mean, let's face it, this very show's version of Metallo doesn't have that much in common with the comics. They very much gave him his own sort of personality. They gave him more of a humorous side. So yeah, I mean, they can get away with it. They've been doing it for 4 years at this point. But yeah, fantastic episode. I would easily put this up there on the season 4 scale as an 8.5.
I would definitely go an 8.5 on this.
Yeah, this is one of those special ones, in my opinion. Yeah, just a fantastic episode. I don't have anything else really to say on this one. Should we call it a day? And yeah, we'll move on and do another one. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.